ladies. Oh, I see both of them. This is good. Um, Please come up on stage and grab a microphone. That's yours. And here comes Sharon as well. Oh, yeah, I'll take the stairs. It's safer. Uh, so lovely to have you here. This is a conversation about conversations, actually. And we brought you here because we think there is a need to talk more about how can we facilitate the conversations that need to happen between people. And this is, of course, one of these occasions. And you girls are building other types of places for conversations to happen. Basically, you'd have to introduce yourselves. Audrey, you with Ciel. What is this?
Yes, so Ciel is another event, and thank you for inviting me today. I'm pleased to see you all. Ciel is one of the leading events in food, taking place in October from 15th to 19th in Paris, but it's a truly international event with over 200 countries, 300,000 participants, B2B. And it's not only a trade fair where companies are promoting their products, but also a think tank, different type of formats to think and own the change, actually. That's the main theme of Ciel Paris. And we'll do that only together. This is the only way.
Is it every year, by the way?
Every second year.
Every second year. Okay, so it's this year, and then we have to wait. Okay.
Absolutely.
And Sharon, about you?
So, Sharon, I am founder of Edible Planet Ventures, but prior to that, I would say, 2014, which is basically when I met you.
Exactly.
Launched an event called Seeds and Chips, which I think was probably the largest food tech event in the world, possibly, one of the first. And growing that ecosystem, at a certain point, I noticed that there was a lot more that we could do. So I decided to leave Seeds and Chips to build this company, which will have its own event as well. We're doing things a little bit differently. So we're bringing about 200 leaders from the agri-food tech space to do a retreat and redesign the future of food by looking at the gaps, the nuances, the unintended consequences, and coming up with short-term solutions to get to the long-term vision that we need to be. So collaborative spaces, design thinking, future thinking scenarios, working together as a group so I can push the needle forward, I would say. Yeah. That's one of the things I'm doing, at least.
Right, but I think it's an interesting question. So how can we build these spaces where things really happen? Because I know myself, when I go to conferences, what I tend to end up is not actually listening to all of the content. I tend to end up talking to people in the corridors instead. Yep. And I know, because perhaps that's what I do best, right? Chit-chat with people, whereas others are listeners more, and take in and then process and then come out with something again. So, but what can we say about these congregations of people? Do we need to build new formats, or are we happy with the ones that we have already now, which are trade shows, conference such as this, summits such as you producing, or are we missing something here when it comes to connecting people?
Well, to me, what we are doing is different in the sense that there is no talks, no panels. It's co-working. So it's really what we're asking people to do is to forget to build their LinkedIn profile, to forget the networking part, and to work with every single one to create something that can have impact. Because as I needed to find a space that wasn't already, in a way, filled. And so I looked at where do we have gaps, right? Because like you, it's much easier to be talking to people than to listen. And what comes out of a conference, I was asking myself, what can we do after when everything is, we turn off the lights, so what do we have? So to me, that was what the gap I wanted to fill.
Sure.
I fully agree. It's a great idea that she has, but I think it's a whole community that we have together. And we need different types of events. At Ciel, I would say that we're not just a trade fair. We're putting that community together and innovation from small producers to big manufacturing companies, authorities, innovative startups. Well, the whole ecosystem is there, so I think we need to maximize what we're doing and embedded some initiatives such as what Sharon is saying to build a future all together. And connections are the key.
Yes.
And I was very interested in the talks earlier, because indeed we see that consumer wants something a bit different from the offer that is actually there. So of course, from an ID, and as I was mentioning earlier, Simon Sinek says, ID comes to life when they are shared. Well, they have to be tangible and have to be sold to make the future of tomorrow. So that's what we have to build together to make that happen.
This is perhaps a rather open, leading, leading question here, but
you need a drink.
What the Americans are so good at is getting everything aligned, getting everyone there at the same time, conversing in their own language, super important for them, and that's a super asset that they have. They have the same media; they can follow what's happening across we cannot do that in Europe. It's impossible to take all these small ecosystem out there and digest them. And I don't know shit what's happening in Romania, say, or even in France, right? And I think that's where we miss out a lot of the efficiency in Europe that we could potentially have. I think we have a lot of talent, a lot of things cooking, but we don't know about it. How can we make sure that we know more what's cooking out there and that we can connect beyond borders?
Do you want to answer this one?
So the mission of my company is uniting ecosystems to accelerate innovation for exactly that point, because there's maybe a great idea in Romania and they're just doing a great job and they're not thinking about scaling elsewhere, but it could be super useful elsewhere. So how do we know about these things, right? And so whether it's to gather, lookouts or, ambassadors in each country, whether it's to partner and have a collaborative network with other organizations, like I call you and say, let's partner up, and I call you and let's partner up, and whatever it's out there, let's bring into something that is shared, so that then we have a cooperative minds. We have, our own little incubator of ideas and solutions. And that to me is the future. So to me, it's like I don't care to do 100% of something. I'd rather do 10 or 20 or 50% of something and do it with other people. But that knowledge, that expertise, and that insight, it's learning for me, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's maybe finding that I have someone else here that is in need of something that you have, and then I can connect you. And then we're doing something positive. So I think we have to look more at the circular or regenerative models and stop going towards more linear thinking, where it's just, me, ego, one organization. Let's try to sort of make it a little bit more.
What do you say about that, Audrey? Because what you've done at Ciel is basically to mass everything into one big thing every second year. Should we break up Ciel and into smaller parts?
To start with, Ciel is not just one event. It's a network of 13 events around the world and growing. So to be as close to the different markets as possible. So that's an answer. Ciel Paris is truly international, and it's gathering. It's the reason why it's every second year. It's to gather that global community, because as you were saying, it's important to understand how things are in the world, to find the best ideas also, and scale that up. And I 100% agree with everything that has been said. It's really important to partner and find the expertise to bring the community the best. And that's what we do, and that's what we intend to continue to do.
Yeah, but then it all boils down then to some stumbling blocks in practice, which most often when it comes to trade shows is like, yeah, you're so welcome to come, and I can sell you 10 square meters here. If you want to have an electrical cord, that's 100 euros. It becomes a business model of connecting people, and sometimes that's kind of a square business model.
But that is just part of Ciel Paris, what you're mentioning. It's just the floor, the exhibition space, but it's much more than that. And it's becoming more and more omnicanal, and with having events in between. And so, of course, everyone has to promote their products, right? So having the possibility to do that and have direct access to buyers is really important. It needs to be tangible. It needs to be a business model if it wants to be sustainable in business-wise. But it's not only that. It's what do we do and own the change. If we chose that main theme at Ciel Paris is really to work all together to make a real difference in the future. We don't see ourselves as a trade fair, to be honest. We see ourselves as part of the community and bringing insights. We're conducting surveys. We're commissioning surveys on every second year to bring knowledge, to bring information, and we know how much upstream information is looked by the consumers. I personally believe that the future will come from consumers' will, and we were mentioning deliciousness. 43% of the consumers are saying that the first thing they want for a product is pleasure. And that's all what we want, right? We're all consumers, and that's the beauty of food. We all want a better, healthier, happier life, and we're conscious. But we also have to find ways to reconciliate, and the part of the consumers that can afford some products, and another part that's just starving. So I personally believe innovation will solve that problem, and thinking together will be the solution. And that's also what is happening at Ciel. It's not only a trade fair.
Okay, very good then. So what type of novelties do we see now? Because we all know what conferencing, we have been doing hybrids now for a couple of years. Mixed success, I'd say. But it's at least a new format out there. Are we seeing more formats coming out there? Virtual reality, metaverse, I don't know. Have you seen something like that recently that we should learn from? And
so I'm still on the fence on the metaverse. I think there is a lot of tools on the virtual reality side that in events could be useful. I remember in 2019 I had done this sort of in a part of the exhibition, I had done this sort of virtual reality doors that you would open and you'd be transported in a farm in Australia or Vietnam, and to sort of see how the things are done. But on the metaverse side, I'm, maybe because I'm not of a super young generation, but it's like with social media, it's like, how do you use it? So if you look at Web3 as like a tool, so the metaverse as a tool, it's one thing. If then it starts to take over your life, that's another. So I don't know how I feel about the metaverse, to tell you the truth.
I'm not totally. I mean, like sitting in a room with Mark Zuckerberg looking like a dinosaur, sharing a PowerPoint. That's not my idea of fun. But it's perhaps people like that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I personally think that the more digital the world will get, the more connection and human contacts will be necessary.
Yeah, and another question here, because when you go to conferences like this and you're supposed to always, not here, not here, always elsewhere, to add your details to some sort of a matching system, and you put in your data, and you're bombarded with requests, mostly from consultants, by the way, interesting, and then you say, nah, I don't want to meet these people. How can we make sure that in a room such as this, or at Ciel, for instance, that we really meet the right ones, not just the ones who are so eager to sell stuff to us, but who really want to connect and change things?
I think there are some good solutions out there in terms of maybe using AI and certain algorithms that sort of take the details of your core interests. I don't remember the name of a company, but there was one in the United States I had a good conversation with. But you're right, like most of them are like bombarding people with things that you're not really interested. So in a way, that's why maybe we can also do some unconferences within the conference, right? So what I'm doing is, 200 people, but I think even in conferences, one could sort of say, if you're interested about whatever topic, meet at 2 in room whatever, right? And have a facilitator and have 10 people there. So those 10 people are interested in whatever problem you want to solve. So I think there's ways to go beyond the digital and maybe include them in more traditional conferences or trade show that are more fun and interactive and not scheduled. Let's say that. Go beyond the scheduling.
A bit like meetups, like you have a room, one topic, come and join and discuss. I think we need both. I think we need to, at Ciel we're launching a digital platform with a matchmaking facility. But again, everyone has to be able to choose, and that's also important to have, to be able to fine-tune who you really want to meet and not just spread the word.
But I think, okay, so probably what we're saying here is that we need new forms of gatherings within a gathering, because if everyone who comes to Ciel Paris, there's like 300,000 people, and then you break it down, and then you break it down, and then you break it down, and suddenly there's a personal meeting there somewhere. Okay, a lot of interesting questions that we could pose in and around this, and I look forward to having these conversations with you ongoing. I think, because one of the things that we're wondering about, and I can leave you with that question for pondering for later conversations, is that next year we bring back our giant food festival after a few COVID years in, diaspora, and then we have 300,000 people coming to a park in Stockholm with loads and loads and loads of chefs present, and lots of food tech companies circulating around it. How can we use such a place better than we do today? Because today we mostly serve people things. We serve people things that we believe is the future of food, so we can let people engage with tastes and flavors, etc. But next year we're rebuilding it, and how should we rebuild it? Let me leave you with that without an answer. I'll leave you also in the audience with that without an answer. And by that, I thank you for joining me here on stage to talk about the future conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We're actually having a break. So we'll be back here in